Looks like a rat's nest right now, but it won't when I'm done. Hey folks, welcome back to Abundant Life Homestead. I've been a little slow at getting videos out lately. Those things kind of happen, but today we're going to pick up where we've left off working on the electrical system for my Kubota B7100 HST-D. In the past, we explained all of the electrical system. We started diagnosing problems where we needed switches and terminals and wires replaced, pulling everything out as we went. And today we're going to start with the clean dash panel, all of the switches, all the new switches installed, no wiring. And then I'll show you the wiring that I made myself, plus the wiring that we're going to keep. We're going to get everything reconnected, tightened down, everything bunched up, tidied up, put back in, make it look like a nice, clean, factory-type wiring harness install. So, if you're interested, if you're rewiring your tractor, you're just following along, stay tuned, because it looks like a mess while we're doing it, but I promise you it looks real nice when we're done. So, trying to expedite things, I did a lot of off-camera work, a lot of late-night stuff, so I'm just going to have to show you what I did here. You can see I put my switches on for the bucket light and rear work light. There were already two holes here. They were filled with these little rubber grommets. I just had to make the hole a little bigger, and since I really liked the extra bezel, I just went ahead and made them for those switches too. Second grommet I put up here where the horn switch was. That'll eventually be a charge light once I figure out the wiring for that, but with winter coming on and this video taking a long time, I think I'll save that for another time. Another thing we did up here, this is a socket for an LED light for my my oil pressure switch. I'm not incredibly happy with the LED that I got, but it's one that I had, so we're going to put it in, and maybe when we revisit this at another time, I'll put a different light in it. On the back side, it's pretty bare right now. Got all the wiring out. That is all laying here beside me. This is where I've done the most of the work. For the headlight and amber light switches, where the ground didn't seal very well with the shrink wrap, I went ahead and cut those back and put a blade connection on them, which I think is what I really wanted anyway, because I can ground to this bar right here. That's where the hour meter grounds to, and the rectifier also grounds to the dash panel, so should have good ground there. While I was at it, all of my blade connections I made rubber boots for, to keep them covered up, keep them from shorting out. Made a power lug for my for the front bucket lights and rear work light. Got a couple new fuse holders. The fuses, all four of them in the original wiring, they hung right down from this connector on the harness, and they just kind of dangled right here. I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of these, but I don't really like it. I think if we revisit this at another time, I'll turn around and put a fuse block in it. But for now, this is what we got. This is what we're going to do. Did have to make one change to the original plan. On the ignition switch, I found out that the the terminal for the accessories is only rated at 10 amps, and it has the headlight, the hour meter, the oil pressure switch, and the horn. Of course, we've deleted the horn, but each of my light circuits takes extra 5 amps, and the ambers do too, even though they probably don't actually consume 5 amps. So all three of those are going to have to go on the battery lug. No big deal, we can make that change. Also made some cords for grounding for various switches. And what we're going to do now is start putting all this wiring back together. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull the ignition switch off. I've got everything just loose, hand tight on here. I'm going to go ahead and put dielectric grease on all these connections. It's probably not entirely necessary, but at the same time it does help prevent corrosion and whatnot. And you get something like a tractor that's outside all the time, it might help these connections last just a couple more years. Okay, those are done. Now the wires that will lead up to those. I'll probably do the ground last. This one being our hazard lights. It gets its own power here. On this end it will connect to the ignition switch. It'll come up through all of this. Yep, it'll go over the decompression thing there. It'll come up through all that, and here we'll slide my boot back. Give it just a little bit of grease. A good positive snap. Push the boot on it. Okay. The yellow and black wire here will go to orange on the wiring harness. The orange both run together, so the one switch will control ambers both in the front and back of the tractor. It'll go the same way under there, over the decompression lever. A little bit of grease. I don't even know if that's focusing on the camera, but there we go. Slide the boot up. There's that. And really just hoping I made the right size when I did wiring and everything here. This is my ground for these switches. The longer of the two will go to the amber lights, and then it'll connect here on that where the hour meter was and will be again. A little bit of grease. Didn't feel like a very positive lock there. Yeah, it's alright. Bring my boot back up. Needs to go over the wire for the decompression lever. Okay. Amber light switch is all plugged in. This is the cable that I made for the headlights. It has, I'll show you when we get it unwound here. It'll go from the ignition switch, the main, the blue will go all the way to the headlight switch. This red will go to, it'll go to my oil pressure switch. This red will go to the hour meter. This gets the brown wire off of the wiring harness. Brown and black. And that goes down to the headlights at the front of the tractor. That brown wire untangled, we'll route it right up alongside these orange ones. Oh, but that, well, crud. I have to unhook it here. It needs to go over the cable for the decompression. Otherwise, I'd have stray wire when I try to put this together as a wiring harness. Okay. So, there we go with that. Now, extra wire hanging off of that. Make sure we keep track of it. That will go to the oil pressure. Okay, third wire on this switch is the ground. It's the blue wire on this one. A bit of grease. It's going to connect to the same ground pigtail that the amber light switch went on. Okay. Everything for that switch is connected. Now we'll go ahead and get this, the ground for the hour meter. And it's just this little short one connector and a ring on the other side, and it'll run up here and ground in the same place the switches do. This is where the where this hour meter originally grounded at. Okay, now we've got our rectifier, 2 gray wires and 1 red wire. The gray wires and red wire all come off of the original wiring harness. And we'll just bring them all 3 up through here. Try to get everything going the same place, same direction. Push those wires back. Okay. Now the 2 gray wires, it doesn't differentiate between the 2. No big deal on what spot they take or which connector goes on which one. They're same collar, same connector, and both perform the same function. They each bring electricity up from the dyno. And then the red wire that connects to the rectifier goes back to the battery post on the ignition switch, provides power while the tractor is running, charges the battery when there's extra power. Let's get those run up in here. Okay. And we've got everything on that side connected. Next we'll go to our LED here. It came with black wires on both sides, but it's got a resistor built into one side. I can see that, so that'll be the side that gets the positive. Let's see. That is what jumped with our headlight wire. Okay. The other side of the oil pressure switch is the blue wire off the original wiring harness. And this light doesn't secure in there, it just kind of presses into its holder. It's one thing I don't like about it, but like I said, it's what I had. And we're going to let this tractor go by. Okay, working on keeping all these wires in the same direction here. Next thing we'll get to, this is our glow plug indicator. I need to pull the nuts off of that, don't I? Okay, for a glow plug indicator, we've got the original wires for it that we're going to use. Double check here, make sure I'm using the right wires. One side of it has a black and white. It goes to number 19 on the ignition switch. The other side has a black and red. It goes to number 17 and should also already be pigtailed down to the wiring harness. So, okay. So this black and red. Next, we're going to go ahead and do the auxiliary light switches. For those, look at my little charts I made there, schematics I made here for those switches. Yellow provides power to the LED in the switch. The black, or what they call normal open on here, will provide the power to the actual lights. The center post of that switch gets a white. That is where the power comes into the switch. And then the post marked G gets a green, and that will ground the green light inside of the switch only when the switch is turned on. Switch right beside it is going to be the exact same way. I'll just do it from top to bottom instead of bottom to top. Oh, just about went the wrong side there. Now, to power those is this little harness I put together and showed you. Each of these red blades will go into a white wire, and the ring terminal will go onto the ignition switch. Okay, the other grounding pigtail I made, it's going to come up to this screw on the same block that the others ground, come around through the harness, and it'll ground to these switches. And last but not least, power to the bucket lights and rear work lights will come off of the auxiliary wiring harness for those. So I made some jumpers so that it will come down and hang right beside this, just like the fuses and the quick connect going to my glow plugs do. So that area is going to be a little cluttered, and that's part of why I think I'll in the future revisit that. Maybe try to put in a fuse block, take some wires different direction or something, but for now, keeping them all where I can just unplug everything in the same location is not a terrible idea. That way, if I need to do any work on it, take the dashboard off again, I'm unplugging everything in one spot. And I just made them orange and yellow. Hopefully I can keep track between the two of them. Probably do yellow for the front and orange for the back, and leave it at that. Yeah, that's good. It's tight on there. Okay, so yeah, these power wires, they'll come down beside the harness. Now we need to connect those grounds. Leave it a little loose in case I need to reposition it while I'm tying them up. Okay, now the fun part. It's about time to hook the ignition switch back up. Which way are we here? I believe, yep. This way is up. So number 50 on the switch has this short little jumper. This is what I said earlier, hangs down right beside the wiring harness coming off the switch. It goes through your safety switch, so you have to have your clutch depressed to activate the starter. Made that a little too tight. I want that loose enough to move. Next is 19. 19 is black and white that comes off of the switch and goes up here to the glow plug indicator. Just snug enough so I can still position it. Okay. And we've got 17. 17 takes this black and red that comes from the harness, goes up to the other side of the glow plug indicator, and sends power to the glow plugs. Okay, on the other side here we've got AC for accessories. Accessories are going to get the headlight, which we know also does the oil pressure switch and the hour meter. And I believe that's all we're going to run off of it. And the final terminal for the battery gets pretty much everything else. Coming from the battery to the switch, also to the rectifier. We've got the switch for the amber lights. And we've got the switch for all the auxiliary lights, the two switches for those. And this might be a little tough to hold it all together and get the screw in it. I probably have to leave the washer off. Okay, there's auxiliary lights, there's amber lights, there's battery. Looks like a rat's nest right now, but it won't when I'm done. Okay, so first stop will be, let me make sure we get on camera here. First stop here, the factory wiring harness, the things that will come down here with it. We have the wire that goes to our glow plugs. I'm going to bring it around behind the others. It will come down here and hang with them. All of my fuses will come down this way. So, coming off of there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and power to the auxiliary lights, which be this yellow and this orange. There's a whole lot of crap right here in the same area. So I said, if I'd have thought about it, I never did really like the fuses just kind of hanging and dangling out there with the wiring harness the way it originally was, and then I sat here, turned around and put it right back the same way it was. This power wire needs to go back up. Okay, so everything that'll be down here in this spot, wrap up with one of these Velcro cable ties. We'll be using a bunch of these today, but they're good and cheap, so. Okay. Some of these I'll have to undo and redo as I go through, but that's okay. That's all part of it. Same over here. We want to make sure we get that ground and that ground going in the right direction. They're coming up this way. And everything that leaves this area and goes up towards the top. Kind of want something binding them there. Fun part is always turning this mess into an organized harness. While you're doing it, you're thinking, man, this is never going to look right. But by the time you're done, look, I forgot another wire. And it takes a whole lot of, oops, I forgot. Gotta unwrap and run that one back up there as well. But then, I think when I'm done, it'll all look right. I was making the extra wires that I needed. I had the dashboard laying here, measured everything out. Didn't give any, nothing, shouldn't have anything too tight or too slack. I think it's all going to work okay. Take this off. Get this blue wire out of it. There we go. And we'll put this back on. And that's why you just leave everything no more than hand tight. I think I kind of also want this white and black running behind that white and black. So, I'll take it off a second time here. Ground wires coming from this side are going to loop this way, and the ground wires coming from the other side are going to loop this way. So where all that comes together, I want a tie. Same way the power for the oil pressure light and the return for the oil pressure light. We'll put both of those. Well, maybe not. Maybe I didn't make enough room to put them that way. I'll put the power for the pressure light there, and we'll tie everything right there. Is coming from the switch to the indicator. You know, it'd be a lot easier if I switched those around. The two wires going to the glow plug indicator, I'm going to reverse those wires, which is no big deal because it's just a heavy gauge wire that glows when it gets hot. Doesn't matter which side the power comes in and goes out, it's the same thing both directions. So coming around here with those, the black and white for the glow plugs is going to go on the right hand side of the indicator, and the black and red for the glow plugs is going to go on the left hand side of the indicator. I shouldn't do these as tight either, because when I go to adjust the wire lengths and get everything just where I want it, I'm going to have to push, especially here in that corner, push some of those back towards the switch, give a little slack back here. On this side, see, we've got these grounds have to come down the other way. Oh, I didn't grab that one there anyway. Leave that loose for a minute. This LED, I'm not going to be happy about it, am I? Run a little bit of it back here. Bring it down with those ground wires. These ground wires will go this way. So we've got one more spot here. A little clip in here that holds the wiring harness at that kind of bus for the grounds. Oh, good thing I caught that, huh? Got those pushed down in the clip. I think these two grounds coming out here, I may go ahead and give a little more slack here. It would be these. Okay, this is pretty tight, but we're gonna start here back at the beginning, tighten these up. I think I might separate what goes up and what goes down here. Those all go down. That's just one wire. Two wires that curve and go up. They might have a little easier time if I do, though. Here. Now, if I was happy with the entire installation, this is the point where I would go through and actually tape it instead of just using the cable ties, but I'm not happy with that LED. I want to put in a charge light. I'm going to do something different about the fuses, so this is all just going to be considered temporary, probably till at least spring, though, because I don't really plan on working on it during the winter, and I want it always available in case I need to depend on it in the winter. Yeah, I'll go ahead and finish it all up, and then I was going to go ahead and tighten all of the terminals on the ignition switch, but I think we're going to tighten everything and then do that. And we'll go through and tighten terminals on everything. Did make my grounds a little too long there, but that's okay, they'll be fine. I can only get to a couple of these from here, but I may, at least the ones I can get to, give them a little more tension so that the wires don't shift too much when I pop it up. And the other two are straight up, so we're okay. Just gotta take it off. And I think the dashboard is pretty much ready for testing. Get back to it, we'll put this on the tractor and start wiring up the harness for the auxiliary lights.